Mm-hmm.
The water is not favorite.
Any water which is good, ask your mom. But water is, if you can put that jug in the, are you sleeping now?
No, I'm not sleeping.
But your eyes look sleepy. Huh?
I'm just tired.
You are tired. What did you do that you are tired?
I'm just taking the cushions outside. I was taking them outside and I was going them outside.
Okay.
I was
Tell them they can put in the fridge freezer later. Because I'm talking, I will need water.
Hello, everyone. I'm René Tanner, and I'm one of the co-editors of the book, Libraries and Sustainability, Programs and Practices for Community Impact. And I'm also the head of research services at Rollins College at Olin Library. I want to welcome you to everyone to the fourth meeting of the Eddie and Neal's Book Club, the ALA Editions ALA Neal Schumann Book Club. We're so grateful today to have Helena Asamoah-Hassan, who is the editor of Digital Literacy, Inclusivity and Sustainable Development in Africa. And this book was first published by Facet. And we also have with us her colleague, Nkem Osuigwe, here to speak with us today. So let's get started. I have some questions for each of you. I wondered first, I'll start with you, Helena. I wonder if you could tell us about your career and how it brought you to this book.
Sorry, I was muted. Yes, I've
Okay.
got to talk.
All
Thank you
right.
very much, René, for this. I'm really excited to be here. It's evening here, so I will say evening. I guess it's about just after midday where you are. I'm actually a librarian by profession, and I have been in the library profession for about 46 years. And I retired in 2014 as a university librarian. And then, in fact, in the library, the university library was the first academic library in Ghana to have an institutional repository. So we've been into this digital space for some time. And when I retired, then I was appointed the executive director for the African Library and Information Associations and Institutions, which is the umbrella association for libraries, librarians, and the communities that they serve in Africa. Now, when we got in there, definitely IT use of digital information had started, but it was not really being used a lot because of particular challenges that some of the countries had. But then we had it on our plate to ensure that we use that with that kind of a background. Then how I also got into this space of digital thing is that I served on the boards of an organization called INASP of the UK, International Network for Scientific Publications. I served on that board where they were providing us electronic resources to our various institutions in some selected African countries. And at the same time, also served on the board of Electronic Information for Libraries, the headquarters based in Lithuania. Now, these two organizations, I had the opportunity to be a trainer for them, training trainers on access to electronic resources and how they can use computers to provide access to. So with these things, that was when the interest and everything to pursue digital information, find out how people can use it. That is how I got into that area. So with that, then the excitement came. Then when the COVID-19 came and we found out that we had to use a lot of this digital literacy and access to make sure that people had access to information while locked up at home, then we found the alternatives, the innovative ways. After that, then we decided that, oh, people really experiences people had. Why can't we pick these experiences from various parts of the continent and the world, and then find a way of sharing our story for outsiders to know? So that is how the book came about.
Thank you so much, Helena. That was a wonderful background. Nkem, I wondered if you would like to jump in and tell us a little bit about what brought you to this book.
Hello, like you said, I am Nkem Osuigwe. I'm also a librarian. I'm a Nigerian, and I was born a little a little bit before the Nigerian Biafra Civil War. And that was like my first introduction to the library. Immediately after the war, I visited a library, and one thing led to the other. And eventually, I started to work in that library, you know, because the level of acceptance of these children in torn clothes, without shoes, without slippers, you know, being allowed into this well-kept space with so many resources, you know, stories being told to the kids and so on. So that made me fall in love with libraries. And I worked in that library from after my O-levels. I was in that library when I went to school from that library on study leave for my first and second degree. And then my third degree too was in that library. And I worked there until I became the head of the library, that particular library. I visited as a child after the war. And then I left government service because I started work at that library at 15 years after my O-levels. So I had to leave at 50 years because in Nigeria, in some parts, you know, you can work for a government agency only for 35 years. So I left, and I worked briefly for Nigerian Book Foundation before I joined AFLIA as a director of training, human capacity development, and training. And it's been, you know, during the COVID, it was as if people were like, what do we do with ourselves? How do we, you know, cope? Shutdowns and so on. And that was when AFLIA worked with Wikimedia Foundation. Yeah, and we introduced African librarians to editing Wikipedia. And from there, we it was as if we discovered that many people still need to gain more digital skills. You know, it's like assume that people know, but when you get down to it, you find out that you can operate on some platforms and you can't on some others. So it was like an eye-opening moment for me and for AFLIA. And we did quite a lot of work that in 2022, I received the Wikimedian of the Year award just because of that work, because it was how do I put it, exerting, trying to bring more than 1,000 people at one time to a platform, teaching them how to do this and do that online. So from one thing to the other, and we got to this book. And let me say a little bit, okay? Well, let me just say a little bit. In doing this, we found out that when you talk of digital skills, digital literacy skills, what the woman in the village needs as a digital skill is different from what Gen Z needs. So we had to balance it, do some balancing acts in order to get this book out. Thank you very much. I hope I answered your question. Thank you.
You did. Thank you, Nkem. That was wonderful, really insightful. And I have another question for the two of you, and I'll start with Helena, and then I'll switch over to Nkem. So my next question is, what would you say are the top digital infrastructure challenges for libraries in African countries?
That's interesting. I think the top challenge goes with connectivity, and connectivity related to electricity supply. Most often, we have a lot of outages, and then when you're ready to work, the light goes off and you have to find a way. If you do not have a backup generator, then that's the end of whatever you want to do. Also, that challenge comes with what we call electricity surges, because the light goes off or the voltage goes down, suddenly there is a surge, upsurge, and it blows the equipment. So you see, at the end of the day, sometimes you do not have the electricity to enable you to use. Now, when it comes, it blows your equipment, and you now do not even have an equipment to work with. So I think that is the top challenge. People have access to laptops. People also, and then we have a lot of ISPs, internet service providers, where we can have access to the internet. But when it comes to the electricity to power it, that is the major challenge that we have with which is preventing people to have smooth access to information.
Yes, thank you, Helena. Really, that's an interesting point. And
Yeah.
in terms of having too much or too little, right? And
Yeah.
Kim, would you like to add to that about the infrastructure challenges?
Yes, just like my boss said, power is important, and honestly, sometimes it's a huge challenge. Then connectivity, like where I am now in Nigeria, there are some areas that they have fast internet, but in some areas, it's quite unstable. Like where I am now is most times unstable. So that's a challenge, But I can I say a little bit more about this? That's where are African libraries in all of this, and the particular challenges they face in ensuring that people access the internet, access connectivity through them. Aflia has worked with Starlink of Elon Musk, and Aflia was able to get free internet for 5 libraries in Africa. And they've been doing awesome in Nigeria, and they've been doing awesome things with that free access to internet. And then Aflia is also training librarians to understand what is that digital, how do I put it, infrastructural backbone that libraries need to have in order to for people to access knowledge or information easily from libraries. So we've been into that, especially in the area of openness, equity and data management. I don't know if we have to that, but let me say a little bit. Let me say something here. You see, when you open Wikipedia now, for example, and you go to and you look for articles about Africa, any country in Africa, anybody from Africa, at the bottom of the page, you see that something that they wrote there, authority control, and Africa has been able to investigate and find out that every article about Africa, about Africans, will lead you to libraries outside of Africa. That sounds like impossible, right? Yeah. But every article there about Africa, about Africans, will lead you to libraries outside of Africa. And because of digital literacy things that we've been doing, we are now working with the foundation to create semantic authority control files so that our libraries can be linked to information about us. You know, why I got into this is that you asked about the challenges that are apparent in Africa as pertains to digital literacy. And I just had to bring in that issue about equity. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And
Go ahead.
René, if I can add this, yes, I mentioned the main challenge as being that of electricity, but then there is another one where in some of our countries, people do not have the adequate training in using computers, you know, and to search for electronic information. That is also a challenge which happens. And the thing which at the bottom line too is that most of these, you know, the library is a social service. And that is where most people have access to this. So sometimes there is a lack of commitment by authorities to ensure that what we need in terms of computers, in terms of connectivity, in terms of electricity, to make information widely accessible, it's not there. Sometimes the various authorities lack their commitment. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Nice addition. I have another question for you. I wondered if you could tell us, and this is kind of related to this idea about skills and skill sets, if you could tell us more about library and information science schools in different countries in Africa. So is there a Pan-African conversation about what digital skills to emphasize for an LIS program? I'll start with you, Helena.
Yes, that's interesting. And that still comes to sit on the table of AFLIA. You know, in Africa, we have most countries, especially the English speaking, almost every country has at least a library school. And when you go to the Francophone, Spanish, Portuguese speaking, I know Portuguese speaking, 1 or 2 countries have got library school, but for Francophone, it's not all the Francophone countries that have. A few have. I know there is in Senegal, there is in Cameroon. So with that, there are more of these library schools in the English speaking. Now, why I said that the Pan-African effort we are making sits with AFLIA, because in the AFLIA we have various sections, and we have a section which we have training schools. Now, under the training schools, it is through that we reach out to the various library schools on the continent. And those training schools, I know that for some time, we are 10 years old, about 6 years or 7 years ago, we started talking about the library schools diversifying their curriculum to include digital literacy. So I know that with that effort and that section on library training schools, they've really been moving around, having webinars, having discussions with heads of departments of those schools to ensure, as I speak, for the one that I know, almost all the library schools, they have, you know, incorporated digital literacy, and then some of them are even doing, going further, information access through online services, all that. And like Nkem said, there are a lot of these library school teachers who are part of this Wikimedia project where they do editing online. So it has really caught on with, I think almost all, if not all, of schools in Africa, they have the digital literacy on their curriculum. Yeah.
Wonderful. And Kim, is there anything you would like to add to that?
Nkem?
Apologies, I didn't know I was muted. Yes, like she said, yeah, I'm here, ma'am. Like she said, right from I think it was in 2019, we held a series of webinars with Professor Ismail Abdullahi from North Carolina University on having standardized and qualitative curriculum for library schools in Africa. That conversation is still ongoing because Africa, we are 54 countries and everybody needs to 55 countries. Everybody needs to have a say in that. So we are still, AFLIA is still on that. Then also, I can also mention that I think it was just last month that AFLIA completed this work with an organization in South Africa, the South African Institute for Distance Education, and we were able to produce a CPD framework for academic librarians. And right there in that framework, we were able to identify 10 main domains that librarians need to be quite efficient in, proficient in, and surprisingly, well, maybe not surprisingly like that, but significantly, digital literacy cuts across all those domains. Let me see, I'll share the link to the framework in the chat box and we can see, you know, what I'm talking about, but it cuts across all that. And that is to say that even if you're no more in the library school, you're now practicing, but you still need to gain these skills. Yeah. So let me see if I can share it.
Okay, great. Well, thank you. I'll let you do that. Thank you, Nkem. And my
Okay,
next
I've shared
question.
it. That's the yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
fantastic.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, thank you. And I know we talked a little bit earlier about the COVID-19 epidemic, and so this question is related to that and how it impacted. I wondered if you could talk about how it impacted libraries and exposed digital inequities. So I wondered if you could describe why digital equity is really important to meet the UN Sustainability Development Goals, and also how have library services in Ghana and Botswana changed to reduce digital inequity post-pandemic? And I'll start with
thank you.
Helena.
Thank you, René. Yes, definitely. The book, there are, I think it's more than a chapter on COVID-19, the effect and how it brought libraries to open the eyes, so to speak, of libraries to digital inequalities. You know, equal access to information definitely brings about equal access to tools, to which will aid national and personal education and development. Because if you have the equal access, you now have the equal tools which will help you to also develop. Now, most times, do you know that the digital information related to the SDGs, they are easily transmitted and used to assist in development online, because most of this information are found online. And because it is like that, and it is online, more people have access to that information than if they appeared in books, and also definitely in printed books. And also, once they come in, most of this information come in as current and quickly. And the interesting thing is that simultaneously, many people can use it. So it helps us. So with this, the digital equity, which came about we discovered that these things were hidden, they were there, and we were not using them. Once COVID came in, we brought them up, and it enabled us to have equal access to the information other in the North had access to, the North of the hemisphere had access to. Now, with this kind of exposure, because we've always known, we've worked with the MDGs. I remember when the MDGs came, most of them came in paper format. And most of us in country, we were working with the paper formats. There was very little access that time to electronic. But here we are, the SDGs coming. And when the SDGs came in and COVID came, we were forced to leave our comfort zones, because we always like using the print copy, and then now go to the digital irrespective of the challenges, we still found ways to surmount some of the challenges to be able to have access to the information at that time. The example, what really helped in Ghana, in the library services in Ghana, and thank God, I also happen to be the chairperson for the board, which runs the whole Ghana library service, public library service. So I was fully involved in most of these things when COVID broke. It enabled us to equip most of our branches with computers. And when we equipped, because the government was all out, people could not go out. So what do you do to satisfy the information needs of your people? And the government was also looking for avenues to transmit information, health-related COVID information to communities. So we quickly cashed in on that and said, we can do that through our branches. So why not? So we were funded to have to put computers in the branch libraries all over the country where we are. Because at that time when we came, we had about 120 branches. So with that, we were able to provide at least information. And at that time, the Library Authority has also developed an app where e-resources, e-books were loaded on that. So people could have access once you have registered, and you also have internet access on your phone. You could access this information from the comfort of your home or from the offices. So through that, the Library Authority was able to defeat that. In fact, through the computers, we also had a television broadcast, education broadcast programs for the children who were not going to school. We had times, grade 1, this time you are going to be taught mathematics, and it came through the libraries. So this was something which we did, and with that, there was equal access to information. It was not the haves who were now having, everybody also had access to information. So it really helped, and it has continued from then. That we still do, there's hybrid, we have the in-library and also the electronic access. Yes.
Yes, thank you. That's very helpful. And Kim, I wondered if you'd like to comment on the COVID-19 epidemic and libraries.
Yes, let me just say, it will be brief because my boss has said almost everything, but for Ghana Library Authority, what we noticed, and even in Botswana, what we noticed is that libraries no more just teach digital literacy skills in general. They now focus on digital applications. How do you use them? Digital platforms. How do you do things there? Like I know that I think I hope I'm getting this pronunciation right, ma. Efutu branch library in Ghana. What I've been doing is to teach students graphic design using Canva. Not just that, oh, you can do this online, but you can just try it online, but to now go to that Canva and also Microsoft Suite to now say one by one, this is what you can do there. Okay, you can't do it like this. What if you click Control and S? This is what happens. If you click the other one, this is what happens. So it's like people now understand that digital skills are just not for people that maybe they want to read or maybe they are in school, but for everyone. Everybody now understands that you need these skills for everything you do in life, whether it's banking or buying things and stuff like that. And I also remember one of our programs, the Afia Leadership Academy. We asked the people to run projects. And one of the things that some of them did was to go to villages and teach women there, how do you open a bank account online? I mean, how do you know that how can you transfer funds from one place to the other online? Because these are the basic skills basic things that they do that will need definite type of skills. So that is what has been going on in Ghana. And then in in Botswana too, I know that the University of Botswana, post-pandemic, they've been able to create, I think it's 49 or 50 LibGuides to help people access information, to help people know that this exists and you can use it this way or that way. Thereby, let me say, bridging the gap between the haves and the have-nots. And then they also have this this plugin, I think that they call it open Athens or something like that, yeah, whereby even if you're off campus, you can still access the resources in the library. Thank you.
Wow, that's so exciting. I'm really happy to hear about that. I wondered if you could share, again, we'll start with Helena. What are some of the most interesting digital literacy success stories you discovered through your work on this book?
I mean, definitely I will pick what I was really involved in, that is from the Ghana Library Authority, because it's something that when we were asked to come up with something like that, we thought that, can we do anything? And eventually, when it kicked off, we caught on, and that was it. And it was so exciting that, honestly, at that time, the whole country, everybody was calling on the Ghana Library Authority. We became the hotkey when you needed information. And that was really exciting. And it was really after that, that is why the director of the library service did this a chapter in the book. Because everybody, it went up to the president of the country. Because here we were, everybody was helpless. You know, when COVID-19 came, people didn't know what to do. Everybody was helpless. We were trying trial and error. And then suddenly, when we were told access to information, even the one for cleanliness, because it was important, wash your hands, make sure you have your mask, you do that, you do this, they didn't know how to send that information across. So when we were able to do that, and there was an app we developed, which could, we had something like people acting, what you should do. And normally, most people like seeing, especially those who are not highly educated, literate in the English language. So we had people acting, and some of them used our local dialects, but then we transmitted it through the whole system. So pictorially, they were seeing how to go about it. It was such a success story that it shot the library service up, which hitherto the people didn't really bother about that, because, well, in our part of the world, reading is a whole issue. We are an oral culture. So because of the oral culture, getting people to read is a big issue. But then when this came, then people now started getting. So it is a success story that we keep sharing. And in fact, the library authority director has been going all over the place, people wanting him to come, how he intervened, the interventions he put together to ensure that there was access, and equitable access for that matter, to information during the COVID-19 era. It even gave him, we won an award, a UNESCO award on access to information, which was, I think, way back, was it 2021 December? The award was presented in Dubai for that. Yeah.
Wow, congratulations on that. And Kim, is there any success stories you'd like to talk about or share?
Yeah, you see, all this while I've been hearing about libraries in South Africa. I've been to libraries in South Africa. I know I've been to some. I've been to South Africa, I think 4 times, and I've been to some of their libraries. But, you never get to hear the whole story. But the chapter by a librarian in the city of Johannesburg, it was like an eye opener for me. The things they did, being able to not just do things inside the library for people that use libraries, but also helping schools in the city understand, how do you cope with e-learning? What are the skills that you need? Teachers, these are the things that you can do. See how you set things up. And, knowing that librarians were in charge of all that, it gave me that sense of pride. It gave me that sense of, yes, libraries can really do this. And then they've been to places with their stories, to quite a number of places, won awards and so on. So yeah, that really was inspiring to me. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Those are really inspiring. Yes. I was wondering, how closely do you follow sustainability and digital literacy initiatives outside of Africa? And are there any that you understand as either inspired by initiatives that started in Africa or that should inspire initiatives in Africa? And I'll start with Helena.
Yeah, yeah. I must really say that I do not follow much what happens outside Africa because there's a lot of work for me to do in Africa in following that. I know we have not exhausted it. There are still areas in Africa that have not, really benefited from these digital literacy initiatives. So there's so much to do that I've not really bothered. And honestly, I'm yet to know of any African initiative that has been adopted in other parts of the world. Um, Africa is building, but looks like we are still consumers. We are still consumers from, things that come up, from the north. So it's something which we have not really looked at. But then when I look at, I really actually find developments and follow sustainability issues within African countries, from one country to the other, because with that, it helps me to support our colleagues, our members in those countries that, oh, these are new things coming up in country A. We are all in the same environment. So you can also do that. So that one we do. If there is something which is happening in Ghana, which is exciting, we will just, okay, those in Nigeria, are you familiar with this? Can you also try it? Something happening in South Africa, definitely we pick from there and also share. In fact, sometimes when we hear such things happen, then we organize a webinar so that those people who are getting these things right, they will share with the others who are yet to get there. So that's what we really have been doing in that area.
Yes, thank you. I know it's so amazing how much we can share and learn from each other. And Kim, is there anything you want to add to that?
Yes, there's this new initiative that we want to start, and we want to start it because we want to learn, especially from the global north. Africa is going to start giving tech companies, people in ICT, we are going to start to give them a platform, starting from a conference that's going to happen in May 2025. That's from our exhibitors. We want to give them a platform to talk to all African librarians. Tell us about your services, your digital services. Tell us about your platforms. What are the skills that we need to navigate the platforms? How can we use these services? Do we need to upgrade our skills digitally and so on? So I believe that with AFLIA going that way, it will bring us closer to initiatives that are happening outside of the continent, because most of these tech companies are actually from outside of Africa. Yeah, thank you.
Yes, thank you. I was wondering about what are some of the things that can be done to increase global engagement in the promotion of digital literacy and sustainability in Africa?
Yeah. I've been thinking about it. I think the key thing is for us to develop more networks, because these networks will help us to share information, between the South, the North, and the South. And it's important, once we have these networks and we also have smooth connectivity, we can have, discussions, we can have webinars, we can have seminars to share this, whatever we think it's important for us to promote digital literacy and how we can sustain it. Closely related to this is that we can also have exchange programs with related institutions to come and learn from us, and we also learn from them. So those are the things we can do. Definitely, there are people who are better placed than us in ensuring that there is sustainability of their own environment, the digital literacy in the environment. So it's important that we identify those areas or those institutions and work along with them to ensure that we learn from them and also are able to sustain ours. So that's what I think. Networks are key in this area.
Yes, what a great idea. What a great insight. And along those lines, let's talk a little bit about key takeaways for an international audience. So how can American and African library professionals collaborate to make libraries environmentally sound, socially equitable, and economically feasible in 2025?
Yep. Yes, that is actually linked to what I just talked about. I think we have to continue learning from each other. And learning from each other also involves discussions, meetings. And thank God we have what it takes to have meetings where we don't have to be physically available. We can use the online access to that. And another thing too is that we should concentrate more on resource sharing. It's very important. Resource sharing is something that we have to look at because there are some resources that are produced here, but it's really not gone across the other side. Let me say it, for example, we have a lot of researchers who carry out good research, but then getting this information published in some of these global journals is an issue. Sometimes they do not, pick those. But then we have equally good journals here that we can get these things published in them. So once we have this kind of a resource sharing, then we can also send what our researchers have published in our type of journals here to them, because we have very good refereed journals. But then these days, most often the aggregators in the North, they have their own ways, corpus and all that. They have some criteria, which sometimes they say our journals don't fit in. But then we know very well that these journals publish primary research, which really helps in national and even global development. So once we share these resources, that will also help us. And in the process of sharing these resources, it makes the North and the South, not to reinvent the wheel. Because if we've done it in Africa and it has worked, why do you have to start it doing there? And you can only know that when we share resources and you see what we have done. So that is what I'm looking forward to, that people in our space, the American and then African library professionals, we should find a way of linking up and ensuring that the materials that we keep or we provide access to for development, we share these materials. And once we share them, it will be easy for us to also learn from them and they learn from us. After all, it is the same thing. We have a lot of medications which have worked, which the raw materials and everything are sourced there. Incidentally, there are some of these medications which are produced in the North that the raw materials are sourced in Africa. So our people also pick these raw materials and then use it for other things. And this is what appears in the research, new areas that people will have to know also in the North. And with that, it's something that will help us. And in addition, we have what we call open access journals. So if our colleagues there in that space, in the American space, once they also get their researchers to publish in these open access journals, which are easily available to everybody, we can use. And then in the same way, our researchers, some of them also publish in this open access journal. So it's necessary that they also subscribe to them, so that at least it will cut costs. You will get the materials, some through this resource sharing without necessarily having to spend anything on it. So I'm looking forward to that. And we are open. For instance, AFLIA, my organization, is actually the gateway to getting African libraries in one place, so to speak. African libraries in one place. So we are always ready to have this collaboration with other libraries in other parts of the world, so that we'll continue sharing information, making sure that information is equitably accessible to all humans on Earth. Thank you.
Thank you. Wow, this is incredibly powerful. And Kim, is there anything you want to add to that?
I think that she has said everything that I want to say, but recently AFLIA ran a webinar on green library initiatives, and when you talk about environmental sustainability, libraries can also be in the forefront doing that. And right now, AFLIA is working with AfriLead, an organization to produce an action guide for libraries in Africa to drive environmental sustainability, in view of climate change and all that. And it will be focused mainly on Africa, because our climate is different and so on. But it will also be great to share experiences with how other libraries in the global north or outside of the continent are coping with environmental challenges, and maybe stuff like social justice. Yeah. Thank you.
Yes, thank you both. Oh, this was so interesting. I'm going to go ahead now and take a question, or start taking questions that we have from our audience. Our first one is there any way to access Helena's training materials for navigating digital libraries? That was our first question.
Oh, okay. The training materials that we use, I'm sure maybe the person is referring to the electronic resources access. It was the organization I worked for that sent me to go and do the training. So it belongs to them. And I think that they should be CC. It should be available to many people. And these trainings I'm talking about were done in between 2004 and 2009. So they are with the organization. If the person can, contact me off record, my email through you, I'll be able to link him or her to that organization, and they'll really make them available.
Okay, fantastic. All right. Another question from our viewers are, thank you for shedding light on this important topic. I'm wondering if there is a way for librarians in the States to connect with librarians in Ghana and or other African countries. And what would be the best way to do that? Is there a sister library program, etc.?
And that's interesting. Individual libraries do that. They have a kind of a program, sister library, and that kind of exchange program. But then it depends on what you, the person, you are interested in, and in what library. If you tell us that, oh, you are interested, you can come through AFLIA. You tell us you are interested in getting a link with a library which does ABC that you are interested in. You let us know. We will definitely link you to another library which does that, and then you can continue doing your business with that library.
Great, good to know. We have another question from our audience, and that is, what are your thoughts on international librarianship and collaboration across the Black diaspora, which are with librarians in other predominantly Black parts of the world, such as the Caribbean and Brazil?
That is another interesting one. I remember 2 years ago, the American Library Association, the immediate past president is a Black. We met at the IFLA conference, and then we had a discussion with him and then Professor Ismail Abdullahi of North Carolina, I think he's retired at North Carolina Library School, to have a program to set up. In fact, we already have an MOU with American Library Association. We have that with them. And then we also met the Black Caucus to be able to set that one up. It has not really happened, but that is an opportunity that we are still working on to explore so that we'll be able to work together. That is what we see, because the African libraries we represent, we want that kind of linkages. There was even, but for COVID, the Black American Caucus, they were going to attend our conference, which was to be held in, I think not Kenya. It was to be held in Ghana in 2021. But because of COVID, we had to do it hybrid. They were coming to attend our conference. And at a time they also invited us to attend their conference. I was at one of their conferences in the US. Was it the one held in Tulsa or something? So we already have that linkage at that level with that association, which we can explore further.
Well, that's great. I know reading the book did make me think of sister library programs and ways of working together. So this is really exciting to know that there's an MOU with the ALA and so on. I'm wondering for both of you, what are you working on now and what have you planned for the future?
Is that working up? It's how to, we've been working on a lot of things, especially linked to literacy. Nkem will add, but then what is on our high plate now is issues about openness, the openness suite, because to us, openness brings about equitable access to information. So that is what we are doing, and we are working with different partners in that area to ensure that there will be equitable access to information, because with that is what helps librarians, what we do, and also ensure that the UN SDGs are realized, because we must all have the information available to help us ensure that we make the SDGs a success. So honestly, the openness in various suites, that is what we are working on. And going forward, it's likely that once we look at this openness and see, we will also do another publication on that, because that is something which is gaining a lot of interest, so that we work on it. So I think Nkem will speak more on the openness thing, but that is broadly, that is it. But she will speak about the breaking down, the things we are doing in that area.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, ma'am. Yeah, we are looking at the entire spectrum, and one place that we want to focus on now, and that it appears we may make a headway through a major grant, hopefully by next year, is this idea of national policies we have all around Africa on language of instruction for little children. These policies, they have it that, if you're in basic 1, 2, 3, they use your mother tongue to teach you in schools. But we are a multilingual continent. You can come to a country like in Nigeria, we have more than 500 mother tongues. So which one do we use? How do we do it? And we are looking at this openness. How can we use open licensing to have standardized reading and supplementary texts for small children in their mother tongues? And we are now looking at the possibility too of how do we work with language teachers and teachers of these children to let them gain skills that they can use to translate these books online, so that wherever you are, you can access such books for classroom uses and for supplementary reading. So that's what we are looking at. Then, because my boss said I can go on, we're also looking at the possibility of how can African librarians stand well in quotes, when it comes to global librarianship? What is it that we need to know? What are the things that we need to learn? What networks do we need to build or belong to? Who do we collaborate with in order to ensure that if librarians, let's say from Nashville, Tennessee, stand up and talk about something, in Africa we'll understand, we'll follow, because we have an idea of what he or she is talking about, irrespective of the fact that our context, our realities are different. So that is what AFLIA is also looking at. How can we get our librarians to be, skillful enough and knowledgeable enough to navigate global librarianship? Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. This has been so amazing and wonderful. I want to thank you both so much, Helena and Nkem. This was just a really incredible conversation. And to our audience, if you enjoyed this discussion and don't have a copy of Digital Literacy, Inclusivity, and Sustainable Development in Africa, or Libraries and Sustainability Programs and Practices for Community Impact, you can visit the alastore.ala.org to purchase either or both of the books. And ALA members receive 10% off the book's list price. But in keeping with the generosity of the season, ALA is also offering the books at 50% off. So that's in addition to the ALA member discount. And you will use the code SUST25 at the checkout to get that discount on the alastore.ala.org. And this offer is available now through Friday, January 31st, 2025. So again, thank you. This was wonderful. And I so appreciate your time today.
Thank you very much. I really also appreciate your time. And these kind of discussions, they help us to know that we have to do more, that others are interested in what we're doing. So because of that, let us do more. So going forward, anything, any projects, any activities that will enable equitable access to information for our people, these are the things that we will go into. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thank you. Thank you, Helena. And Nkem, I mean, it was truly incredible. I really, really enjoyed the book, and I hope that other people will read it too. There's so much to be learned and enjoyed from that book.
Yes, and I'll really go to your own and then have a look. That's a promise. I'll do that.
Thank you.
It's a promise.
Not at all. Thank you.
Right. Okay.
All right. Well, we'll say goodbye for now then.
All right.
Until we see each other again.
Thank you very much. Yes, another time. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.